Hello and welcome once again to the Windy City's finest on location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac, I'm Perry, and this is
Kathryn Randell Domes.
Yes, and thank you so much for inviting us into your space. And yeah, just to give people a bit of context, what is it that you do?
What is it that I do? Well, I'm a painter and I draw, but I'm also a full-time teacher and a mom of two beautiful kids and a wife, and very local to Lethbridge. Very busy person, but my life is full and great.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for that. And yeah, I'm super excited to dive into more of your artistic journey later on in a different segment with Mac. But for this segment, we're just going to do our icebreaker games, get to know you a bit, and hopefully create some connection points with viewers. So our first thing is just going to be some trivia. So I have a question here for you, and then you have some exciting questions for me about Mac. But my first question for you is, Lethbridge does not have a what side of the city? A, north side, B, east side, C, south side, or D, west side?
No east side.
No east side, you
That's
got
an
it.
easy one.
Yeah. Which I just think is kind of odd. Like whenever people who haven't visited, they're always like, is there an east side? Like,
Well, technically, there's always an east side,
yes,
right? But
yeah,
no, you're right. Yes,
yeah,
my kids have asked the same thing. Why
yeah.
don't we have an east side? History of the city, I think.
History of the city. Yeah, yeah. And just kind of building off like with your kids there, what is it like being so local to Lethbridge and kind of raising your kids here? Like, is it special? Is there things you know that you can share with them? What's
Yeah.
that been like?
It's really special. We live on the street I grew up in. My parents still live in my childhood home 2 blocks away. I teach at the school I went to. I really, even though I've done a lot of traveling and explored the world, I've always come back because it's such a great city and the perfect city to really raise your kids in. It's just such a nice size. There's still lots of opportunity, and yet it feels, a little bit. It just feels more like home, and nothing's too far. It's a great place to be.
That's awesome that you get to share that with your kids. That's awesome. I'm going to pass it off to you to read the first bit of trivia for me about Mac, and I have no idea what to expect. We have learned that I maybe do not listen to Mac very much, so we'll see how many of these I get right. But
this is a tough one.
Oh gosh, great.
I didn't know this actually. So Mac has been to both Lethbridges in Canada, the other being near A, Thompson, Manitoba,
Ooh.
B, Brooklyn, Newfoundland, C, North Hatley, Quebec, or D, Caslow, British Columbia.
Okay. I might just be kind of guessing on this one, but I'm going to go with C, which was near Quebec, I think. No! Oh!
Sorry, B, Brooklyn, Newfoundland.
Newfoundland! I should have known. One of my other good friends is from Newfoundland. Should have known.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
So I'm learning too.
Yeah,
That's
great. Great. Our next thing is just some this or that. So I have a lovely little hat here, and it's just got stuff like tea or coffee, cats or dogs. So I'll let you do the honors of picking the first piece, and you can just read it out. And yeah, we'll see what your preferences are.
Wine or beer? Wine.
Sure. That was a quick answer. I love the confidence there.
Yes, I really like red wine.
Nice.
Full-bodied.
Full-bodied red wine. Yeah. Me too.
Okay. Yeah. Well, we'll have to share a glass sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. I will do the honors picking the next one. Rich or famous? Which would you prefer, if any?
Oh.
I mean, maybe rich, but I don't want to speak for you.
It depends what I'd be famous for. Oh, that is a tough one. Because kind of neither, to be honest with you. But if I had to choose, I'm going to go with rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Because then I can still be. Hopefully, I could hide it a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not be famous.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'd probably do the same thing.
Would you?
I'm not sure what fame, like you can use fame for. I'm sure people use it for many things, but hopefully good.
Well, it depends what kind of famous. And I guess my mind went to paparazzi, which would just absolutely be not my thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an introvert, so.
That's
Yeah.
super fair. Me too, actually.
Well, I can't tell at all.
Really?
No, yeah.
It is kind of weird being an actor, being an introvert,
Yeah.
because I think everybody expects you to be very outgoing, which I can be, but I think I rejuvenate with by time to myself.
Me too.
So, yeah.
100%. Yeah.
And a glass of red wine.
And a glass of red wine.
Cool. Last but not least, we have our tumbling towers here. So just a quick review. You can't pick anything from the top 3 rows.
Okay.
And we'll place it on the top once you have pulled it out. And I'll let you do the honors and pick the first block. And
I'm
it will
really
correspond.
Good at this. I'm going to warn you.
Yeah? Is this like a family game? Or
we
just...
shouldn't say that. Right? We shouldn't say that. It is a bit of a family game. Ooh, this is a little bit.
Although we have upgraded difficulty because we have this table with 3 legs on carpet.
Yeah.
So it is upgraded difficulty, but we'll see how this goes. It's so intense.
It really is. Dun, dun, dun. Dun, dun, dun.
You got it. You got it. 27. Nice. Oh, interesting. It's so crazy, the serendipity here. What's a book you couldn't put down?
I knew I was going to be asked that.
Oh.
I did. And so before we started the interview, I went downstairs to my bookshelf and I was like, okay, which one would I pick here? You know, when you read a lot, like I say, there's only so much room in your house. So you're always getting rid of things. But I had to look at what I couldn't get rid of.
Right.
Like the things that have kind of stayed. And it was a Bill Bryson book. I don't know if you know Bill Bryson, but so he's a kind of a science writer. He answers some really big, tough questions about the history of the world. So he wrote a book called A Brief History of Nearly Everything.
Okay.
Which I highly recommend. It was a book that I just read voraciously. It was so interesting. It was about everything from, Yellowstone National Park being a giant caldera to, just the way we've evolved. And so I guess I gravitate towards like science-based. Yeah. And I also... Right now, I'm reading a book that's really good called Your Brain on Art. So it's all current research on what happens neurologically in our brains when we are either exposed to art or when we're creating art, even better. And they're finding that it extends our life span to be engaged in the arts.
Gets you more time.
Gets you more time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess I'm drawn to science-related books.
That's awesome. Rah. 34. Let's see what we got.
Good job.
What's one talent that you wish you had?
Acting.
Oh.
Yeah, I do. Yes, it's something that I really admire. I think that it would be really challenging to take on a completely different character and come out of yourself and really jump into that and be able to. Have you ever heard of the Hawthorne effect?
No.
I'm experiencing it right now.
Oh, elaborate.
So whenever you're being recorded, apparently it must be named after somebody who studied it, but you change, you're so hyper aware of being recorded that, your voice changes, your mannerisms change, it's that nervousness. And I think I would find it hard to get over that. But I suppose, after a lot of practice, you might, but I just really admire that ability to become something that you're not. And I'm starting to explore that. I'm offering a class at school with who I work with, Andy Roberts. She's got a background in theater, as you know. And so we are offering a class right now called Indigenous Theater Experience.
Okay.
And it's the first time, as far as we know, that an Indigenous theater class has ever been offered in schools in Southern Alberta. So we're really proud of it. We're really excited. And watching her teach this class, instruct this class, it's given me such a deep appreciation for a different cultural approach to theater too, instead of just the Western approach.
Right.
And offering that experience to our students is really great. I think we're starting to see students kind of come out of their shell that maybe we normally wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's all the time we have for this segment. Thank you so much for your insights and your answers. It's been lovely getting to know you. Super excited to dive more into your artistic practice in the next segment. But yeah, this has been the Windy City's Finest on Location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac, I'm Perry, and this has been
Kathryn Domes.
Welcome to the Windy City's Finest on Location with Mac and Perry. I'm Mac, he's Perry, and this is
Kathryn Randell Domes.
It was really great to get to know a little about you, Kathryn, with Perry there and learn about what you're into. Love the nonfiction books. That's great. I'm definitely a nonfiction person myself. Yeah, but we're not here for that. We're here for the arts. We want to talk
Yes.
about arts.
Let's do it.
Yeah, and so I'm really excited to learn about your art and kind of what you do, why you do it, all those good things.
Thank
It'll
you.
be great. Yeah,
Thanks.
yeah. So I know you kind of mentioned at the very top, but let's just as a refresher, like what art do you do?
So I'm primarily a painter. I've been drawn to painting since I can remember. I would say I was pretty influenced by Sesame Street when I was young, and that's something that I've been recently exploring with some of my abstract work. So I paint landscapes, I paint abstract paintings, but I also love to draw. I love music, all the arts. I think I'm drawn to writing, reading, and yeah, I kind of oscillate. I kind of move around. I get bored easily, so I don't really stick to just one genre, but I always return to landscapes. That's kind of how I grew up. My dad is a painter and was really influential. He's a landscape painter. So from a young age, he would take me out on sketch trips and I would watch him paint, so very influential. I think if it weren't for him, I probably wouldn't be as drawn to it, I'm sure.
Yeah. And he's still painting, right?
He is, yeah. He has a studio out at McNally.
Okay.
At McNally Studios out in the country. So he gets out there as much as he can. And we have a show coming up together, which I'm really excited about.
Oh,
so
nice.
that'll be in just about a year and a half. Something that we've been working towards for a really long time. So that feels momentous.
Yeah, tell me more about that. So what led to you doing a show together?
Well, it's been a goal for a really long time. When I first finished art school, I had a show with both him and my brother, just a little one at the library. And, we always thought, well, let's do a bigger one eventually. But, life gets busy. I became a teacher. I became a mom, so everything kind of got put on hold a little bit. I was still painting as much as I could and doing commissions and things like that, but didn't feel like I had the time to really commit to preparing for a show. And so the opportunity came up recently. We have a wonderful art center, CASA, who supports local artists, and they did a call for submissions. And I just thought, if not now, when? It's time. He's 80 years old now, and it's been a goal of mine. It'd be really, really special to hang my work alongside his. So we're in the process of planning it, talking about how we want to do this, and it's just really special to have that time with him. And it's time to showcase some of his work because he hasn't been showing it, and it's fantastic. So
no, that's like a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So you were the one who approached him and said, "I want to do this show together."
Yeah, I mean, I guess we're kind of similar. We love painting, but we're not always the best at promoting ourselves, and we haven't. I'm a bit of a late bloomer. I didn't have any shows actually since just shortly after art school. It's always been a goal, but with just life situations, I don't regret any of it. But now is the time. Now I'm in my 40s, and I just thought, let's get this going. And because of the art collective now, that's been very motivating and super helpful to have these other professional artists to talk about art with, to talk shop with, and to motivate me in that direction. And so it's like when you decide something, it's amazing how the doors just kind of open up. You put that intention out there, and I just confidently kind of put out these submissions. And if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't. And it's been amazing, the support. I've had 3 shows just in the last couple months. So it's really happening now, which is, it's kind of about time, but it's happening as it's supposed to, I think. Yeah, absolutely. And when it's supposed to.
Yeah, nice. You decided to go to art school, and then you studied drawing, painting, things like that?
I did, and that wasn't initially the plan. I always chose to take art in school, and I'm a huge supporter, of course, as a teacher of public education, in the sense that I think we need to expose kids to so many different things so that they can find their spark, so they can find what they're drawn to. And I was a French immersion kid, so we were kind of limited in how many options we could take, but I always chose art. So I took the options in junior high and high school, and then I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in university, but I went on to university and kept taking art classes just because that's what I always did. And eventually I decided to make it a major. And that was the plan. I was going to be an artist. And so that experience of being in art school, having the community that I did, was really special. I had wonderful professors who really guided me, and I would express interest in something, and the next day they would have articles for me to read, or but you go when you go to art school, you go from having this amazing community of people that are like-minded and that you can bounce ideas off of, and then when you're done, it's like, okay, now what? And I really am grateful for the education I got from the University of Lethbridge, but I didn't feel prepared when I convocated to apply for shows or for the business side of it. They focused on the theoretical side of it very much so. And that was all very wonderful. I really enjoyed my art history classes and traveled through Europe and got to see all the art that I'd been studying. That was very influential too. So I kind of dabbled for about a year after being done. And I was always drawn to working with kids. I'd always either coached swimming or taught dance or worked in out of school programs, worked as an EA. And finally I decided, well, if I can go back to school, and really it was to pay off loans. When you are an art student, you don't always think about it, right? You don't think about the money side of things. And there's a really wonderful book called Big Magic by Elizabeth Gilbert. And she talks about that. She actually, kind of controversial, but she doesn't really encourage people to go to art school. I wouldn't say that, but she talked about how, when you're saddled with this debt from your degree, then suddenly your art has this pressure put on it, and I didn't want that. I realized I couldn't handle the pressure of trying to make a living making my art primarily. And so and I agree with her, she really thinks it's important to have a day job, to always incorporate your artistic practice as much as you can. But to put that kind of pressure on your art, sometimes it works for some people, but it just didn't really work for me. So went back to school, became an art teacher, and here I am.
Yeah. How do you fit your art into your life then?
Well, I think this house has actually done a lot for me in terms of feeling more creative. We moved into this house about 5 years ago, and it used to belong to Leroy Stagger, a musician. So there's a studio out back that he built that has space upstairs for painting. In our last house, I was down in a dark basement. I wasn't exactly feeling as motivated. I think it's as simple as having the space that you look forward to going to. And it's completely separate from the house. There's no sound. I can crank my music up there. The kids wouldn't hear. They go to bed and I can go up there and do my thing. It's completely different feel than if you're having to go down to a dingy basement, So I think, balancing it with kids, with little kids, is really tricky. And I do know that a lot of female artists who've chosen to be mothers have found it tricky. And I certainly don't regret the choice to be a mother. It's been the greatest gift. But you just have to kind of balance your priorities. And now that they're a bit older, it's just a little bit easier to take that time. And it's wonderful. Sometimes they'll come up to my studio and they'll join me in my art practice. And it makes me feel like, oh, this is what I remember from my own childhood. And now my kids are taking part in it. And my daughter, especially, both kids are very, very creative and do enjoy that as well. So we can kind of share that, and it's become a source of bonding with them too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just like your dad with you, that makes total sense. Yeah. Oh, lovely. Yeah. What was that like to have that first show with the collective?
Yeah, really exciting. Yeah. It was really exciting, especially for me, not having had any shows really through my career, just kind of doing it on the side. So to put your work in a public space, there's something really special about that. And you feel a little bit vulnerable, of course. Art is it's interesting. Visual art you feel very vulnerable showing your work. And I'm not sure why. It's interesting to me. It's almost like you're afraid of criticism because you've poured your heart and soul into something. You've poured hours and hours and hours and lots of money into creating this thing that you then want to show the world, and you just want it to be well received, of course. But, honestly, it was just a joyous thing to put the show up. LA Gallery was really, really helpful. They helped us put a track in the restaurant. The restaurant was so supportive. They really promoted it well, and we had a really good turnout at the opening. So it was really fun. It just felt like a celebration. And Corinne said, I'm just really proud of us. We said we were going to do this thing, and we did it. And then because of that show, that got the momentum going. And an elevation gallery caught wind of it, and then they offered us the show as well. And so that happened quite quickly. So it was a little bit stressful for me being so busy, but it was also just what I needed to get my butt up into the studio every single night. You know, kids go to bed, I go up to the studio. Yeah, so lots of late nights, lots of lack of sleep. But then the Fernie show that felt pretty momentous.
Yeah. What was different about that show, do you think?
Well, I think it's when a gallery asks you to show your work there. I think that feels good. And I think the public, it feels like a recognition of your work being good enough to be shown. You know, they take a risk, actually, art galleries, in carrying your work because that's how they make their money, you know. Whereas if you display your work at a restaurant, really, it's no skin off their backs, right? And Bourbon and Butter was wonderful in that they didn't want to take a commission. They just wanted to support local art. Of course, Elevation is a business, and so that's a risk that they take. And you know, it was up for a few weeks to a month, and they still have some of our pieces still there. But that felt very momentous. To see my work up in a commercial gallery was a big moment for sure.
Yeah. Tell me more about that. How did that feel?
Oh, well, the night we went, so my husband and I went the night before the opening, and we were just walking downtown in Fernie. We were going to go out for dinner. And it's like I forgot why we were there or something. We were just in the middle of conversation, and he pulled up, he parked the car, and I looked up, and I didn't even really realize where he was parking. I looked up and I saw my painting through the window. The lights were on, it was nighttime. And I actually took a breath in and went, oh my gosh.
I'm curious, Kathryn. Has there been any skills you've had to develop with your art or your artistic practice? Like non-related art skills, like you mentioned, like with the exhibit and stuff, but yeah, anything you've had to work on that going to stump you now after all that?
Yeah, no, of course. Always learning. Yeah, definitely believe in being a lifelong learner. And do you mean with relation to my art practice?
Or like a non-art skill, if you know, like to promote, like you mentioned, like you're not great at promoting your art.
Yeah,
you know, something like that you've had to kind of get better at.
Yep, I've definitely had to. Yeah, and I'm working on getting a website up, but you know, it's amazing nowadays what you can do with Instagram. That's what I've been focusing on. That's how I promote my art, primarily is through social media. But even just creating reels and, you know, doing all of that, I try not to spend too much time doing that because you can get a little bit too focused on, you know, are people seeing it? Are they liking it? You know, and sometimes that can take away from your art practice. But nope, that's definitely been something I've had to work on. Even just, dealing with the hardware, you know, and dealing with materials. How do you ship a piece for a painting or for a show? So that's where having these other artists who, you know, they're established, right? And so they know these things, and they know whether or not it's your responsibility to ship the work to the gallery or from the gallery, how to wrap it, you know, those types of things. So I'm really grateful because those are all things that you don't learn in art school. You kind of learn by just talking to people, and always learning.
Of course, definitely. Yeah, absolutely, great. I have time for one last question. We always ask this question. Is kind of a big one, but if you could summarize it, like how has painting or your art, like how has that changed you as a person? It's such a big question because it's such a big part of your life. But even like the process or making time for art or the exhibits or the collective. It was a lot of things, but kind of generally, how do you feel like that's changed you as a person?
I don't think it's changed me so much as formed me because I've always done it. Right from when I was little, you know, as I said, I was so lucky. I was home with my dad. Sometimes he would just set up an easel for me, give me some paper, give me some paints, and off I would go. So I think it's something that I maybe have taken for granted, and for people who haven't really explored painting before, it's hard for me to envision what life would be like without it. But in terms of, I think it grounds me. I think it makes me happier. When I've been able to spend a few hours up in the studio, I'll come down and my husband, who's very supportive, will say, you know, how was it? How did you do with the painting? And I'll say, gosh, I need to be doing that every day because it is so healthy. There's a reason why artists live the longest. I think it's healthy for your body, healthy for your mind, for your soul to engage in an artistic practice, whatever that might be. And I really encourage people to make the time for it. I think it's often seen in our society as something that is an extra. You can do it on the side, but it's not really your thing. Lots of times then people are too exhausted or they don't make time for it. And I can't tell you how many students I've met or adults that I've met who've said, oh, I can't draw a stick man, and I always say, well, how much time have you spent on it? It'd be like me saying, I'm terrible at hockey. Well, how much have I tried, right? So regardless of, how people feel in terms of the product and what they produce, it's the act that I think is really, really healthy and really important. And I think it's our duty as a society to make sure that we're providing those opportunities for people. And we're really lucky in Lethbridge that we have places like CASA that are promoting, giving classes and allowing people to try things that maybe never have, no matter what their age. It's not too late to try anything. So
absolutely great. I think that's that absolutely, yeah, great note to end on. So yeah, I really appreciate you letting me know about your practice and your journey, and it's been really good. So thank you for chatting with me, Kathryn.
It's a great opportunity. I love what you guys are doing.
Good,
so
Thank
you.
So that's all the time we have for this segment. We do have one more. We're going to show the art. We're going to see it. So we will be right back. This is the Windy City's Finest On Location with Mac and Perry. I'm Mac. He's Perry, and this is
Kathryn Randell Domes.
Hello and welcome once again to the Windy City's Finest On Location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac, I'm Perry, and this is
Kathryn Randell Domes.
Yes, for the third time. Sweet, we're going to dive into your showcase segment, showcase a couple of your pieces, hear about the story behind them, and yeah, super informative, your interview with Mac, hearing about like your process and journey so far. So I'm super excited to see what we can kind of jump off from there. We have our first piece with us here. Does it have a title? Do you typically title your pieces?
I think this one was called Burned.
Right on.
Just really basic, right to the point.
Yeah.
Or burn, actually, it's just burn. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because it's actively happening. So it's the Kino fire in Waterton, which was pretty devastating for a lot of people, for sure. I remember it so well. That's where my roots are. My grandparents had a ranch very nearby. So spent my childhood there, did a lot of sketching there and camping there. Almost every weekend was spent in that area. And so it was a big deal to see it burning as it was. But I've also learned a lot. I work with Indigenous students, and we're always bringing in elders, and I'm trying to do a lot of reading to learn about the culture and learn about the practices and the history. And the book that I mentioned earlier, the Bill Bryson book, actually, this is interesting.
Yeah.
I think it was that book where they talked about the practice of burning the landscape regularly in stewardship, that it was a part of taking care of the land in order to promote that growth that would then help sustain the animals and therefore sustain the people. And so it's not something that we really think about when we think about the history of North America, but the practice of burning has actually been a deep history. And that's actually what they believe had led to the huge herds of bison, buffalo on the prairies, was this practice of burning regularly so that the new growth would then support all of these herds. And so I was really thinking about that a lot, and about fire suppression, and how that's really led to a lot of the really hot fires that tend to burn now, and how we're kind of starting to revisit this idea of burning. And, we're doing it, I guess, more often now, just to kind of try and mitigate some of those really high risk areas. And so when this fire happened, though, in Waterton, of course, it threatened a lot of the infrastructure in the places that I was really attached to. Right. And it's amazing what the firefighters were able to do in protecting that whole town site, which was huge. I got married there. I had my childhood there. And so we were all kind of waiting with bated breath to see kind of what would happen. So for this painting, I wanted to focus on the fire itself. I'd never painted fire before. I'd never painted smoke, painted a lot of clouds. And it was interesting to me how similar the shapes were of the smoke to clouds. So it was a challenge, definitely. And I think it's important as a painter to take on new challenges, things that you've never tried before, just to see, how you can do with it. And I think at one time I would shy away from something that I thought was too challenging because I was worried that it wouldn't turn out. But now I think I'm getting a little bit more confident and a little bit more willing to take those risks. And so But the theme, because this was for a show, I wanted to do a series that was kind of paying homage to the first people of the land and how they used to care for it for thousands and thousands of years. And the more I learn about it, the more I learn that everything has a spirit. Everything on the land is so valuable and has a spirit and is a gift from the Creator. And so the regrowth that we're now seeing in Waterton is such a gift. You know, we're seeing all of these beautiful plants coming back, flowers coming back, and slowly but surely the trees as well.
They're about this high. I was there recently, and the trees are getting there, yeah.
And it just goes to show, again, such a metaphor for life. I went through a really difficult situation this winter, just with a person that, you know, it was sort of like the relationship, you know, in standing up for something that I believed in, the relationship kind of burned up, you know, in a way. And so I was really thinking about that too, and taking this on, that sometimes you need to let things burn. And that was actually going to be the title of this painting. Sometimes you need to let things burn in order for something to come out of the ashes. And an elder that I'm in touch with, she shared with me that this Thunderbird, the idea of the Thunderbird the symbol had kind of come to me as I was going through this. And the idea of the Thunderbird, it's across the continent. Indigenous people believe that the Thunderbird represents renewal and power and protection. And so I was really thinking about that as well, that things can come from the ashes, that even though sometimes it seems catastrophic, that it's actually for the best.
And I understand that this piece is connected to another piece. Is that correct?
Yes, it's connected to a few pieces. So in preparation for the Fernie show, I thought, okay, we have some pieces from Bourbon and Butter that are going to be there, and they're very local. And I did a painting of two paintings of writing on stone. So writing on stone also being a sacred landscape for Indigenous people, Blackfoot people, and so thinking about the earth needing to be renewed.
Woo! I got it. I'll put it on here. Yeah.
I needed to create a few more pieces for the Fernie show, and I decided to focus on renewal. So the last painting you saw was of the smoke and the burn itself actively happening. And I always do an underpainting often of my landscapes with a burnt sienna color so that it kind of seeps through the other colors. And because that is very much sort of the color of our landscape, you know, those rich browns and of ochre. So I was really thinking about ochre because when you receive a name, you get your face painted with ochre. And the Thunderbird, there's so many layers. The Thunderbird was in Thunderbird Cave, which I visited, I was painted with ochre. And so you'll see a lot of my work, you'll see this sienna color that kind of seeps through, and it also was perfect for painting the fire. So that is the color that you see underneath the layers here. So this is of Waterton as well, but then this is a couple of years later, and it's supposed to show the regrowth, but instead of painting the greens like we typically associate with regrowth, I was thinking about all of the layers of trees and the history of the land. And so if you look really closely, you'll see like these little ghost trees, in here. So I was thinking about how many trees have been there before and fallen and enriched the earth, and the earth being so alive, and providing all of these nutrients. And it's like life begetting life and the cycles of life happening. So this was a real joy to do, but it was also really, took a long time. There's just a lot of detail. And because I did an underpainting first, and then the trees themselves, and then I painted between all of the trees. And so you'll see there's a lot of detail here and painting in between them. But the mark making was very intentional and very related to the music that I was listening to. And it's just kind of a celebration of the fact that, nature always finds a way. We always find a way. So sometimes we need to, renew and good things can come, new, change is inevitable in life. We're always having to let go, whether as a parent, letting go of your kids' youth, and watching them grow, watching your parents age, and, the letting go of things that you were attached to from your childhood. It's the same thing in nature. Nothing ever stays the same. Like a sunset, it's there for a while, it's beautiful for a while, and then it's gone, and then it gets renewed, so changing of the seasons, changing of the landscape.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, like the cyclical nature of things, it seems to be a very present thing in your practice and like
Yes.
what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And I think we're pretty much at our time.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure if there's any like last little tidbits that you really wanted to share about this piece or the last piece.
No, not really. It's just
Yeah.
it's been an honor to be able to paint our local landscape. Blackfoot Territory is such a beautiful place to live. There was one more painting behind you of Napi's River that we could just show real quick.
Yeah.
So this is a very local one. I just wanted to show it quickly because I was really happy with how the sky turned out. I mean, living in Southern Alberta, skies are just phenomenal.
Mhm.
And this was done with the other artists at my house. And I was
Amazing.
just, again, listening to great music, eating great food, and just very loose, And so this one is called Napi's River. I'm learning some of the stories about this river here that sustains all the life in our area.
Mhm.
And I think that's about all I have to say. So
That's totally
you.
fair. I wish we had more time
it's
to
okay.
dive
It's
into
okay.
it
This has
because
been great.
yeah, because I love how like rich the history and the texture of like everything around what we see here. I feel like this is a small like a snippet of what goes into your pieces. So thank you so much
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
insight and letting us show your pieces. This is amazing.
It was an honor, truly. So thank you.
Thank you. This has been the Windy City's finest on location with Mac and Perry. He's Mac, I'm Perry, and this has been
Kathryn Randell Domes.
It's Mac and Perry in the place. Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry
Go live to create.
Da-na-na-na. Mac and Perry invite you to stay.